I'd like to, if I may, to tell you a story, to take you back in time to 1957. The great Kerry footballer Jack O'Shea is born, arguably one of the greatest footballers of all time. In America, Elvis purchases Graceland for the princely sum of $100,000. The Nuffield Farming Scholarships celebrates its 10th anniversary. The Russians launch Sputnik, the first Earth artificial satellite to be launched into space. The EEC comes into effect, the 6 founding members signing what would set the platform for the common market with free trade, travel, movement of people, something we take for granted today. Back home in Ireland, Fianna Fáil win the general election, and Eamon de Valera becomes a Taoiseach for the 3rd time. And the dance halls across Ireland and the airways across the world are filled with the sound of Buddy Holly and the chirping crickets with their #1 hit on this very day in 1957 of That'll Be the Day. It also marked the year that the Irish Eradication Programme for bovine tuberculosis came into effect in 1957. After a pilot programme in 1952 in Limerick and Clare, and a voluntary programme in 1954, 1957 marks the start of the National Eradication Programme. And what ensued was 70 years of an eradication effort. My name is John Keane, and I'm a 2024 Nuffield Ireland Scholar. And the topic that I chose for my Nuffield is Pathways to Eradication of Bovine Tuberculosis here in Ireland. Over the course of my Nuffield travels across 6 continents, 15 countries, and over 200 engagements, I have had the experience of a lifetime. From meeting Kenyan dairy farmer Mary Blackbeard, milking her 8 cows by hand, to dairy giants in New Zealand, to beekeeping in Canada, to seeing the unbridled joy on Nick's face as he saw a small bit of home nailed to a wall of a dive bar in Nebraska, to creating lifelong lasting friends, it has been quite the experience. And over the course of my travels, 2 very simple questions have come up. What is TB, and why in God's earth did you choose to study it? I'm sure everybody here has their own thoughts on what TB is. You might say that it's an infectious disease. That's correct. It's caused by Mycobacterium bovis. You might say that it's transmitted predominantly through aerosols and bodily fluids. Also absolutely correct. And you might also say that some of the key vectors in Ireland are cattle, badgers, and deer, which is also absolutely correct. But for me, what TB is, and what the past 2 years have shown me is, it's actually much bigger than that. What TB is it's about the people. It's about the farmer returning to the kitchen table to tell their family that they've been infected with bovine TB and they've got reactors and they're locked up. It's about the vet at the crush with the taggers in one hand and the brass tag in the other, delivering the bad news. I'm afraid she's a positive. And it's the Department of Agriculture official signing off on a market valuation form before the animal is sent to slaughter. And why did I choose TB? Well, I come from a family dairy and beef farm in South County Laois, and I've returned home to full-time farming for the past 8 years. 3 generations are now on our farm. My parents, my wife Helen and I, and our gorgeous 2-year-old daughter, Margot. Our farm has been affected by TB over the past decade. I also chose TB because I see the alarming increase in herd incidence and reactor numbers over the past number of years. And I also chose it because in 2021, I was fortunate enough to be elected the Macronaferma National President. And this gave me the opportunity to sit in those very kitchens, to listen to those very farmers, to hear their stories, the toll, financial, and more often, emotional. It's fair to say that over the past 70 years, Ireland's relationship with the Eradication Programme has been a turbulent one. From its inception in 1957 to a declaration of almost TB-free in 1965 by the late Charles Haughey, to the set-up of the ERAD in 1988, to a historic low in 2016, the establishment of a TB forum in 2018, and now where we find ourselves in 2025 with a herd incident rate of 6.4% and over 45,000 reactors going to be taken off farm in 2025. It has been a fractious relationship. So what have I learned on the course of my travels? Well, as I said, I traveled across 15 countries, and some of the main learnings are detailed here. In New Zealand, I learned that a stepped approach to target and measures was a key measure for how they achieved eradication. In 1994, there were 1,700 herds infected with bovine TB. The AHB, the Animal Health Board at the time, decided that they needed to set an ambitious target for the year 2000. So they set the target of having less than 1,000 reactors. By June 2000, that figure dropped from 1,700 to 666. Another review took place and decided to set another target of having a herd incidence rate of 0.2% by the year 2013. In late 2012, they achieved that target. And they sat down again and decided by the end of 2026 that bovine TB would be eradicated from New Zealand. As of June 2025, the infection now remains in just 16 herds across the country. This was achieved by a regionalized approach. Specific actions in specific areas, dependent on the specific challenges in those geographical locations. It was based on a consistent application of the full suite of eradication measures across all areas. And it was driven by good governance, by the foundation of Osprey, which is an industry-supported company with a board of directors, most of which are farmers, regional committees that work underneath those, local area committees, and advisory committees. Some might say it's very similar to the cooperative model. In Australia, I learned that individual farm plans were key and central to the eradication of the disease in the early 2000s. These farms were property-based, specific to those properties, and developed in tandem with the farmers. Herd categorization and area categorization was also a key element of the program in Australia. And finally, there was very strong financial support for farmers. Significant reactor compensation. There was a haulage support payment, which supported farmers for the transport of animals. And there was also a mustering fee, which supported farmers to gather animals for their test. In England, our close neighbours, we share common vectors, with the main vectors being the cattle, badgers, and also deer. Their focus around wildlife is around vaccination of the badger population, with minimal amount of culling. There is also area categorization in England, whereby you have high-risk areas and low-risk areas, and buffering in the middle, you have edge areas. What this means is that there are different application of measures dependent on the area that the farmer is operating in. There is also different measures implicated for the movement of cattle between those areas. And there is significant work ongoing at the moment in England and the UK on vaccine development. 2 phases of fieldwork have been completed as of 2024, and fieldwork is ongoing to be completed in 2026 across 10 farms and 750 animals. And it's hoped that they will have a market-deployable vaccine ready for market in the next number of years. In Wales, the disease itself, TB, is endemic in certain areas, and they have deployed what's called hotspot toolkits, which are specific area and farm-based planned, dependent on what's happening inside that farm gate. In 2024, they rolled out the use of approved tuberculin testers to support increased testing across the country. And there is also commitment in the programme for government by the Wales government that there will be a future ban on badger culling in the years to come. In Northern Ireland, bordering the Republic, there is an importance working on collaboration and partnership. The recently released Blueprint for Eradication has a huge focus on stakeholder engagement and collaboration. Maybe a chat, I think, with Molly could be very beneficial to them. There is also a focus on increased use of gamma interferon testing, or blood testing, which is a higher sensitivity when compared to the skin test. And there is also, in the pipeline, the proposal development for a proof of concept for the introduction of a pilot regionalised project in the north. And I firmly believe that this is something which we here in Ireland should also consider. Finally, to my recommendations. Across all the countries that I visited, across all the programs that I analysed, and across all the people that I spoke to, including here in Ireland, consistency, consistency, consistency. You have to have a consistent application of all the measures that are contained within your eradication program to achieve results. Here in Ireland, it can be argued that over the past decades, there hasn't been consistent application. And speaking to farmers themselves, it's quite obvious that that is the case. I believe that the establishment of an infectious disease and eradication agency, similar to what's set up in New Zealand called Osprey, should be established to run, implement, and strategize the eradication program here in Ireland. A stakeholder body, the board of directors, most of whom will be farmers, driving forward the eradication efforts with regional committees, local area committees, and advisories, with farmers at the core. I believe that a regionalised approach to disease management, similar to which has been implemented successfully in New Zealand, successfully in Australia, and that they're working on and working with in both England and Wales, can prove results in terms of a specific application of measures in specific locations tailored to the challenges. The big elephant in the room in most countries is the effective wildlife management programs. I firmly believe, and it has been shown in New Zealand and in the UK, that effective wildlife management can be a key contributor to the reduction of the disease. At the end of the day, it's the disease that we're trying to eradicate, not the vectors that carry the disease. So the focus needs to be on disease eradication. Tailored wildlife management plans based on specific challenges within those regions is something which has been implemented in Australia, something which has been implemented in New Zealand, and has been implemented to good effect. In terms of cattle interventions, mandatory disease investigation at the point of breakdown within farm is something which provides certainty to farmers, it provides clarity, but it also provides a plan in the form of a disease freedom plan. Farmers have consistently said in Ireland that despite their best efforts, despite all the work and investment, they still find themselves in the same place. And a key attribute of this is the source attribution, which was implemented in New Zealand, whereby a farmer is given the probability of how the disease became infected into their herd. And finally, a huge amount of work needs to be done in terms of vaccine development. Ongoing work in the UK is certainly promising, but previous studies from Mexico, Ethiopia, Spain, and further afield have shown that there are further questions around efficacy, longevity, and the likelihood that the animals can be truly infected even after vaccination. I think the Department of Agriculture and believe that they need to engage actively in the research, which they are in some instances in the UK. But I also think they need to develop an implementation plan should this market-ready deployable vaccine become available for use here in Ireland. It won't be a solve the problem, but it may be an additional tool which will help us on the road to eradication. I would finally like to thank the board of Nuffield, to Joe and all the team for their support over the past 2 years, to Catherine for her immense patience with me in particular, given I was late again this morning, so thank you very much. And to the investors and sponsors of Nuffield, none of this would be possible without you. And I hope that you see the return in value in the scholars themselves, but also in the wider industry. I'd like to thank my family, in particular my parents, for their continued support. I'd like to thank my long-suffering wife, who's here again today to support me, who's the rock that our family is built on, and is the glue that keeps it together when myself and our 2-year-old CEO at home have a heated discussion about what teddies should be in the cot on that night. And finally, I hope that my report, which is available on the Nuffield website, has over 60 recommendations, can contribute in some small way to the eradication efforts here in Ireland. I hope that it leads and helps to the day when the farmer no longer has to return to the kitchen table and deliver those conversations to their family. I hope it helps to lead to the day where the vet no longer has to deliver those tough conversations at the side of the crush. And I hope it leads to the day when the department official no longer has to sign those market valuation forms. And as Buddy Holly and the Chirping Crickets once sang, that'll be the day. Thank you.